Islam don't.
Islam is a principle. Islam is a comprehensive system. Islam is a law. Muslims, say la ilaha illallah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Watching Islam Dunk. We're here in Toronto, 2008 Journey of Faith Conference with Shaikh Tawfique Chowdhury, all the way from Australia, right?
Yeah.
MashaAllah. And thank you for being on the Islam Dunk show.
My pleasure.
And Jazakallah for coming to Toronto. Beautiful lecture. Inshallah, hopefully everyone will benefit. We record it, and inshallah, people will be able to benefit.
Inshallah.
It'll be in your balance, inshallah, till the judgment.
Inshallah.
Basically, the questions that I will ask you today will be more to deal with Muslims in the western part of the world, mainly Canada, USA, Australia. Muslims as minorities, and especially people who have embraced Islam. How do they understand Islam, having come from a background where they've been raised with Western mentality? Do the two conflict? How can they understand Islam? And the first question that our new Muslim brothers actually have, many of them, alhamdulillah, in the West, especially, after 2001, many people have embraced Islam. Many people have wondered, what is this Islam? They study the Quran, they study the Sunnah, and then they come to understand and to love Islam. Yet they find a question in Islam, which is regards to the Methabs. How do we understand as Muslims the different scholars, the rich amount of knowledge that they have brought to Islam? Sometimes people come and they say, is there many Islams? Is there different Islams? How would you answer that question if someone would pose you that question?
Okay, thank you for that question. That's usually a common question posed by people, and the easy way to answer this really is that a person really, when he initially starts practicing and he initially starts to learn about the deen, he should in reality learn a little bit about the history of Islam and about what happened to Muslims and how the Islamic process of legal theory actually came about. A little bit of that would actually make a lot of sense to him and would actually demystify the whole topic of madhabs to him, right? So very simply put, about 100 years after the death of Rasulullah, the scholars obviously they started to discuss about many of the new things that were coming up. So at that time there were basically four great scholars that came up. Of them, one of them was Abu Hanifa, another one was Imam Malik. Abu Hanifa was in Iraq, Imam Malik was in Medina. Another one was Imam Shafi. He went to Medina, then he later on settled in Egypt. And then there was Imam Ahmed, who was in Iraq as well. So here we go. So we have basically four scholars. What happened was they were not the only scholars at that time. They were greater scholars, but they were exceptionally great. So they're exceptionally knowledgeable. They had large students. They had a larger base of people who would come to gain knowledge from them. So their opinions became popular. Their way of approaching Islamic legal theory became more popular. And as a result, people became polarized in their opinion. That doesn't mean that the only way is through these four. That also doesn't mean that we should leave the four and go to anyone else, because there's nothing called four ways of thought in Islam at all. It just means that these scholars and their thoughts and the way of approaching Islam and the Quran and Sunnah became the most popular ways. That doesn't mean necessarily just because there are four that they were not similar in many things. They were similar in many things. They first went to the Quran, then they went to the Sunnah of Rasulullah, or the narrations of Rasulullah, then they went to Ijma', or the consensus of the Ummah, of the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By consensus we mean the consensus of the scholars of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then they went to something called analogy, and then they went into other principles through which they deduced, in which they differed. But the first four, they were quite similar. So they have a lot of similarities. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I understand.
But because their situations were different. One of them was in Iraq, the other one was in Medina. Medina was the heart of Islam at that time, wasn't it? So the Prophet's narrations were very easily available there. On the other hand, Iraq was a place wherein that was not the heart of Islam. In fact, was the heart of the Persian Empire at the time. And once Persia was actually conquered, that a lot of enemies of Islam wanted to actually go into Islam and destroy it. So as a result, they tried to fabricate a lot of narrations. And as a result, the scholars became so strict in accepting narrations that they actually didn't even accept many narrations. So the number of narrations that they had to base their rulings on from the Prophet was actually very less than the ones in Medina. So you see, that's why people had different opinions, because they were improvising based on the situation that they had. They were trying to find out rulings based on whatever the evidence was actually available to them at that time. So as a result, as you can imagine, people differed in their final ruling. That's why you have, for example, 4 different ways of doing perhaps the same thing.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that truth is multiple. It means that there's only one truth still. It has to be either right or wrong, right? And it doesn't mean just because of 4 opinions that all 4 are right. Doesn't mean that. It just means that, yes, as far as you're concerned, since you may not be at the level to decipher which level to follow, which one to follow, you can follow either one of them. But the point is that doesn't mean that the one that you follow is definitely true.
Right.
Because the true is that which would require further research for you to study, to find out what is that which is closest to the evidence. And the evidence is basically what Allah came with, or what Allah gave to us, and what the Prophet came with, right? And that is a level of research and study. But until then, you can follow any one of them. But that doesn't mean that it's a permanent excuse. Rather, as many of the scholars mentioned, taqleed or blind following is like the bathroom. You only use it when you need it. And is there anyone who wants to live in the bathroom forever? I don't think so. So don't be of those who just stay in the bathroom forever, basically. Right? Rather, gain knowledge from the cradle to the grave, right? And keep on improving so that you continue to be a student of knowledge, and so that ultimately, when God asks you on the Day of Judgment, He's not going to ask you, the grave, they're not going to ask you which madhab were you on.
Right.
They're going to ask you one question, that is, ماذا أجبت المرسلين? How have you answered the Prophet? So are you going to say, when the message came, we didn't listen because Abu Hanifa said that, or Malik said that? No.
Right.
Ultimately, that's our goal. Yes, we realize that we may not be at that level because we are at the level where we cannot decipher it, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't aspire to achieve it.
So you're saying their methodologies were the same, but their circumstances were different. That's what came to some of the...
Yeah, what I'm saying is initial parts of methodology, the first 4 bits of the methodology, they were all the same, yes. Right. But of course the circumstances differed.
Right.
The specific evidences that was available in every topic differed. Sure. And as a result, it gave rise to a lot of differences in the final rule.
If a new Muslim brother or sister decides to start practicing, should they follow a madhab? Should they go and study a certain madhab? Or can they, for example, go to the Malik madhab?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I would say at this stage that if a person accepts Islam or just starts to practice Islam, either follow a particular madhab or follow any scholar that is available to you that is of the level of telling you, giving a ruling on Islam. It doesn't have to be necessarily, okay, say, you know what, I want to follow the Hanafi method, but you know what, I need to ask a question, but there's only a Shafi'i scholar available. So I won't go to him because he's not going to answer my economic method. That's wrong.
Right.
No, you are only following the Hanafi method because that's your preference at this stage, for any reason, whatever it is. But as far as you're concerned, you're not going to say, you know what, the only type of bathroom that I like is my type. Right? If some other types of bathroom are available, I'm not going to use it. No, when you need it, man. It doesn't matter whose bathroom it is. Right? Just use it. You know what I'm trying to say? Right. Because I'm trying to give you the example that taqleed is like bathroom. Right? So that's what it is like. So the whole point is, yes, you'd have a preference. But when you don't have that access, then go to any available appropriate scholar that is able to tell you that which is right, that which is wrong.
Is there an instance or instances where something is haram in one madhab and allowed, permissible, halal, or maybe in another madhab?
Yeah, lots of instances.
So if someone would ask you, how, if something is allowed in one, not allowed in the other one, someone has to be wrong, right?
That's correct.
So how do we account for that? How do we?
That's a great question. So here, if for example, one madhab says, okay, taking interest is fine, right? For example, another one says it's not fine, right? So for you to, then at that point to actually shop around for a fatwa would be wrong. As far as you're concerned, if you're a general person, a new person back into Islam, what's obligatory on you to follow is the first person that you ask. Okay? As soon as the person gives you that answer, he could be the easier one, he could be the more difficult one, irrespective. Whatever ruling he gives you, you're obliged to listen to that.
So basically, you don't go further than that.
No, you don't. I mean, you may go further by way of asking to increase the knowledge.
Right.
It could be, okay, what are the rulings of Islam in this, and what are the opinions available in this? Yeah, by way of understanding or educating yourself, not by way of acting upon it. As far as you're concerned, because you don't know any further, any beyond, any more than that. What's obligatory on you is the first thing that you listen to.
Okay. What if you don't agree with that?
What do you mean?
If it's a person, for example, as you said, there's fatwa shopping, right, people, and this is something very popular, unfortunately, today. So a person goes to a scholar and he asks him about music, for example.
Yep.
And the scholar says, it's haram, right? He says, we go to the next scholar, and then he will say, I mean, what's the fine line? People should be careful, be following their desires when looking at a fatwa. What kind of advice can you give to someone to make sure that their intention is sincere and that they're not going to go for what they want? They're going to go for what the scholars give them, what the truth is.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Remember, not everything about Islam is going to be easy. There are going to be some things about Islam that are difficult. And so, as a result, if you were to then follow everything that is easy, then you definitely know you're not following Islam. You're following your desires. Because we know there are many things about Islam that are difficult. Cutting off the hand, stoning, lashing. And these are difficult stuff. Not everything about Islam is easy, man.
Right.
Right. So therefore, if you're going to find the easiest answer in everything, say, you know what, Allah is Ghafur Rahim, He's forgiving, merciful, etc. So I'm going to find the easiest opinion. You're definitely wrong.
Right.
This is what the scholars say, that man tatabbar rukhas tazandaq, the one who follows the concessions of the scholars, then he has become a zindiq. Zindiq meaning that he's become a heretic. Right? So a person should not do so. What he should do is basically ask one person, and then ultimately, before asking, of course, make sure you do your research to know that this person is qualified, he's able to give you the answer, etc. Ask him, whatever answer he gives you, then you're obliged to follow that. Okay, how would you stick to one? Well, by first of all remembering that ultimately the first is the one that is obligatory, not the second. And remember, the first is gained by way of obligation. The first one that you ask is by way of obligation. The second one that you ask is by way of you increasing in knowledge. Remembering that. Secondly, remembering that ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not only judge us based upon us doing the action, but it's also Allah has to accept it. Just because we pray doesn't mean Allah accepts it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There has to be something greater. That is a fear of Allah in the heart.
So the physical actions are not enough.
Yeah, that's right. The physical action is not enough. Just because you prayed or I prayed doesn't mean God has accepted it. That's why Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Verily, Allah only accepts from those who fear Him. Right? Only those who accepts from those who fear Him. Therefore, do you know if Allah accepts this from you? Do you feel you're someone who fears Allah? So therefore, can you guarantee Allah is accepting your deeds? You can't. This is why Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he said that, Wallahi, if I knew that Allah had accepted even one of my good deeds, I'd be the most happiest person on this earth.
We would all be.
Yeah, and our problem is we think Allah is accepting automatically. Yeah, just do it and He'll accept it. That's why we just, at the last minute we pray, or even if it's late, we still pray. Things are, we overlook mistakes, things that we do. Yeah, don't worry, Allah's Ghafur Rahim, etc. He'll forgive. That's been the main problem, isn't it? Because we forget Allah will only accept if we fear Him. So therefore, when you're fatwa shopping, are you fearing God? You're probably not. And you know that in your heart. Because really a sin is that which, as Rasulullah said, that Allah gave us this wazi' dini, this scale in order for us to know what's right and what's wrong. And that's the heart, right? And so that heart, the Prophet said, Al-itham ma hana fi nafsik wa karihtan yattal alayhi nas. The sin is that which hurts your heart, and it causes a difficulty in your heart to be accepted, and you would hate that people find out about it. So would you like that people find out that you're fatwa shopping? Would you like? Does your heart really accept it? And if you're finding your heart's accepting it, then you rather check whether you're munafiq or not. But if you know that your heart's accepting, that's still a believer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So these are all ways by which we can ensure that we are not fatwa shopping,
right,
rather we are on the right.
What if that first scholar is wrong? What happens then?
Yeah, if the first scholar is wrong, that's a fantastic question. If that first scholar could be wrong, the first scholar could tell you an innovation, right? Then that's his problem.
So you're not buying.
You're actually rewarded for that. Yeah.
A lot of people say that Islam is a very stagnant religion, a very firm. There's no flexibility in it. It's stuck in the 5th, 6th century, in a Bedouin type of environment. Can you explain to us what does fiqh mean, and how does that science, what's the flexibility, and how does it evolve, or how does it, I would say, how does it amend based on the times and certain circumstances? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. You seem to be asking me a lot of great questions, Okay, it's a great question because, you see, if Islam was totally dynamic, there would not be religion at all. It would be just our desires, right? That's exactly what Christianity has become now, isn't it? It's just like, all right, guys, who wants to make priests, gay priests, everyone hands up. All right, who says I? Okay, eyes have it, nays don't have it. You know what I'm saying? No, what is that? That's falling desires. That's not something from God, right? And so if it was totally, quote unquote, that's what you mean. What they mean by dynamic, right?
Liberal.
Yeah, liberal. Yeah, if it was completely liberal, they would have no basis and no rigidity, no firmness. Okay, it would be a perverted religion.
Right.
Rather, for a religion to be true and for it to be eternal and for it to be from the heavenly God, it has to have certain things that are rigid in it. So those principles have to be rigid, such as what the beliefs of Islam, that there is one God, and that Muhammad is his messenger, and we believe in the prophets, believe in the angels, we believe in the hereafter, we believe in the last day, and we believe in the predestination, the good and the bad. So these are the things that are rigid; they don't change. But there are things, of course, at the same time, for Islam to survive to the 21st century and beyond, it also has to be dynamic. It can't be completely rigid; it has to be dynamic. But that dynamicity must be dictated by the rigidity as well, in order that the dynamicity does not go into those things which are rigid, in order to not dilute it and for it to become just whims and desires.
There are certain barriers.
Yeah, there are barriers, and so those barriers are clear. As for the dynamicity of the religion is what I call the rules of fiqh, or those rules around which all of Islam and its rulings and regulations revolve around. Examples of that, for example, is one of the rules of fiqh is that customs is the rule of Islam in an issue in which there is no ruling of Islam. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say God says that we are allowed to shorten our prayers when we travel.
Right.
That is a case of what is travel. Travel is whatever the customs that people consider travel. Okay. Let's say, for example, and this is this dynamicity of referring back to the customs of the people when it does not conflict against the religion. That is what allowed Islam to spread so far, so wide around the world. That's why it spread to Indonesia, Malaysia. That's why it spread to Africa. That's why it spread to Europe. Okay, and people shouldn't think. People have these misconceptions. If I become Muslim, do I have to wear this thobe that I'm wearing, this particular dress I'm wearing?
Right.
No, I just happen to wear it because I'm,
it's comfortable.
It's comfortable, right?
And
I just have to wear it. Yeah, it's fine. When I go to hospital,
right.
I wear shirt and pants, because if I went like that to my patients, they would have a heart attack.
Right.
This is Bin Laden coming and fixing my heart. Not going to work. Okay, so they're going to have a heart attack. So I approach things in a different way.
Right.
So it's about. You understand?
I understand. Right. That was actually my next question.
Yeah.
The role of culture in Islam and fiqh.
Yeah. People think when they want to accept Islam, do I have to start eating curries? They think that when I accept Islam, I have to start wearing this dress. That's unfortunate because we're not exporting culture. Unfortunately, that's what it's become now these days. That yes, we expect people though they accept Islam, they have to start now suddenly change the diet, suddenly change their clothing. You don't have to. You can even keep your own name. You can. Your culture is unique. It's acceptable to Islam.
So you can still be Canadian, American, Australian.
Fantastic, of course.
And be a Muslim.
That's right, and that's why the Prophet had in his time people who were Persians, but companions. Salman al-Farsi, for example, Persian. Bilal, Ethiopian.
Right.
And they had their own cultures too.
A lot of brothers and sisters, inshallah, will come to the deen very zealous, and they tend to look down on culture. They say, what is in culture, is totally against Islam. When does culture become something that conflicts with Islam?
That's a very good question. Again, it's all to do with if all customs is acceptable except that which is not. Okay, what does that mean?
Right.
Meaning, any custom is acceptable to God unless there is actually explicit prohibition against that idea.
Right.
So, for example, okay, Canada, for example, they like maple syrup, right?
Right.
Fine, there's nothing wrong with that. No injunction in the Quran or
Right.
no prohibition against it eating it. Okay, or you like, I think, salmon jerky or something. I've seen that. Right. I don't know. I just landed at the airport and I saw that. So must be something what they like here. So like a salmon jerky, for example. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead. And so this is unique to the culture and it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. On the other hand, there are certain things about the culture which Islam doesn't condone. Homosexuality, for example.
Which is accepted in Canadian
Accepted,
culture.
yeah, and same-sex marriages, for example. These are not things that Islam would condone. So therefore, that would not be an acceptable custom in Islam.
Right. So basically, Islam has has transpassed time and has been steady in certain core issues.
Yeah. Otherwise, it can never maintain Islam.
Right.
Otherwise, we're going to find, we're going to find the Muslim of the 19th century and the Muslim of the 20th century two different things.
Right. So whatever was haram or not allowed at the time of the Prophet, today people find that the same wouldn't change. That okay, today it's allowed, tomorrow it's not allowed.
Okay,
10 years from
that's
now.
that's a very important question. You see, because there's a difference between something called hukum and fatwa, and I need to explain what these words
Right.
mean. Okay, the hukum means the ruling of Islam.
Okay.
The ruling of Islam never changes by time. An example of a ruling would be, what's a ruling of drinking alcohol?
Right.
That's haram. What's a ruling of eating pork? That's haram.
Mhm.
So the ruling of these things never change according to time, right?
Okay.
That's rule. But there's something called fatwa.
Mhm.
And let's go back to ruling. Now, where's the ruling derived from? That's derived directly from the Quran, from the Sunnah, from the evidences, right? Now, after the ruling, there's something called fatwa. Fatwa is the specific application of a ruling.
Okay.
But specific application, by its definition, means that it's specified. It's specific according to time and place,
Okay.
right? So therefore, time and place are going to have an effect on the final result.
Okay.
So when you have the ruling and then you add time and place to it, then you come out with a fatwa. And the fatwa may be radically different from the ruling itself.
Nice.
Okay? So for example, what's the ruling of eating pork?
It's haram.
Haram.
Right.
But what is the ruling of eating pork when a person is about to die of hunger?
It's allowed.
Halal, isn't it?
Right.
So look, the fatwa is completely different from the ruling, isn't it?
Right.
Why do we say the fatwa? Because the fatwa is specifically time and place. This person here, in front of me here, who is dying of hunger, for him, he can have pork. You see?
So it's not just black and white. Islam is a comprehensive system, which is very. It's a way of life. That
It is.
If there's a necessity, a sincere necessity, someone's really in need and his life is at threat or something,
Yeah.
and certain things will become permissible
That's
in
correct.
that case.
That's correct. It's quite unfortunate that we think about the wisdom of democracy, the wisdom of the Western civilization,
Right.
and we haven't really spent time about talking about the principles upon which Islam is based. This is heavenly religion, right? It's meant to be from God. It must have heavenly wisdom behind all its rulings and legislations. Why is God so strict about zina? Why is God so zina, meaning adultery? Why is God so strict about drinking alcohol? It's because what is He trying to preserve is the reason why He's strict. Because He's trying to preserve and to the best ability our mind. That's why the punishment for drinking alcohol is so severe. Why is He trying to preserve? Why is the punishment for adultery so severe? Because He's trying to preserve progeny and people's honor. Why is the punishment for killing so severe? Because look what He's trying to preserve. He's trying to preserve life through it. It's the opposite of what He's trying to preserve from it. It's the way that we're looking at it. You can look at a negative way or look at the positive, the opposite positive of what He's trying to preserve.
For Muslims who are living in Western societies, there are some fundamental differences between what we as Muslims hold ethical and moral and what the West holds. And sometimes the West will look, for example, and they'll feel threatened by some of the ideas that Islam puts out there. For example, alcohol or gambling, right? They say, if Muslims would be a majority, there would be no casinos. It would have some kind of effect, right? If people started voting against it or something.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a threat? Is that something positive? Is that?
Yeah. Look, Rudyard Kipling, he said in the first poem that he wrote, he said, "East is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet." And this is this notion of clash of civilizations. It doesn't have to happen that way, you know. We can live together. We are living together. We have lived together. The United Nations was actually made because of the universal values that we all have. So when we say, you know, this is my value, it's wrong. When they say, okay, these are Aussie values, Australian values, or these are American values, that's not true. These are universal values. Because if I said, okay, is going to pub meaning, you know, you guys call it pub?
Pub, yes.
Yeah, okay. So going to the pub on Friday nights, is that an Australian value? No one's going to say that. They're going to say mateship is an Australian value. Justice, honor, rule of law is an Australian value.
Right.
But these are all values universal, even to Islam as well. But the whole point is it's an application or our interpretation of our values according to our own prejudices that make that cause the problems.
Right.
If we all said, you know what, we all, both Muslims believe in freedom of choice, and non-Muslims believe in freedom of choice.
Right.
So the non-Muslim woman is exercising her freedom of choice, and she decides to display her body, for example. And the Muslim sister, she wants to exercise her freedom of choice, and she wishes to only display her body to her husband. Right? So that's, you know, both of them are based on the same right of choice, but they're expressing it according to their own cultural backgrounds and according to their own tastes. And so the interpretation of the law should not take us away from the fact that we have those laws that are similar, or those values I'm talking about that are similar. But just because we're interpreting them differently, or according to our circumstances, situation, and cultural background, doesn't mean that we don't have those universal values that are similar. So the universal values become a basis for us to live together. Okay? Presence of universal values negates terrorism, negates extremism, negates lack of interaction, negates a war of civilizations.
Right? For our brothers and sisters who are starting Islam, coming to the deen, what's your advice in approaching Islam? Should they, are they supposed to pray right away, all the 5 prayers? Are they supposed to fast? Or let's say some brothers and sisters are embraced Islam right before Ramadan. Should they start fasting before Ramadan right away? Should our community look down upon them if they don't?
It's a great question. I think, you know, look, there needs to be a lot of support for our new Muslims and new reverts, and, you know, people even coming back to the deen. We do need to provide a lot more services for them. We need to provide them an alternative family even, because many of them may not have the family support. So we need to provide them also the emotional support as well of their traumatic time of their life for the families that installed them, for example. All of this is really important.
So should they move in, take the whole deen at once? Should they go step by step?
Well, definitely they should go step by step, because as you know, as the saying goes, if you give something, only a part of it comes to you. If you give your whole self to knowledge, only a part of it will come to you. In the same way, therefore, practice of Islam really has to happen gradually. The most important thing is to build a habit, and the habit cannot be built in a day. It's about constantly doing it, right? So yes, some of the things are more important than others that should be done earlier rather than later.
Right.
Prayer, for example.
Priorities.
Yeah, priorities. So you prioritize that prayer, ablution. These are things a person needs to learn the first few weeks,
right?
At least, okay. And I would say probably in a month he should be praying more.
Right.
And really, if he has true belief in his heart, then his limbs will also show, and he'll start to pray. But maybe other things he or she may not do now. For example, sisters accept Islam now, she may take a longer time to wait for each other. Yeah, that might just be the case. Right. Just chill out on that.
As long as you're moving and you want to go towards it.
As long as every day that you wake up is better than the next day.
Right.
As long as you've improved from the first day, every day you actually improve from what you were before. That's exactly your aim.
And in conclusion, because this conference is about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Why do you love Prophet Muhammad?
Why do I love him? Wow. I love him because he is more beloved to me than my parents. I love him because he loved me more than my own parents. I love him because when my parents will run away from me from the day of judgment, he will run to me. I love him because he loved me even though he never knew me. And he sacrifices love so that I may live and so that I may have a chance to enter Jannah. I love him because I love him because God told me to love him. I love him because when I love God, then there is no other choice except for me to love those who love God as well. I love him because he's such a noble person. I love him because when you hear about the most beautiful things a person does, you cannot help but love him. When you read how great he was, how noble he was, how just and pious and honest he was, how well-mannered he was, how gentle he was, and how kind and soft and courageous he was. You know, when you read about him, you cannot but help loving, you know, my Prophet. And I think it's the most beautiful present God has given us, that he's given us a human being like us, so that we may associate, we may relate to him, and we may say to my Prophet, oh my Prophet, I love you for Allah's sake.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.
I reward you.
My pleasure, and you as well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Definitely, Jazakallah khair.
Wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.